Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I want to welcome our viewers around the world, especially here in the United States. This is Temba Afrique TV here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I want to tell you that I'm going to be a host, producer for Himila Show. Today we have a very highly regarded individuals here in our studio. We are trying to talk about Horn of Africa, regional conflicts and global concerns. So we are trying to narrow down and talk about Ethiopia today, even though we're going to have more discussion in that particular topic for the next weeks or so. I would like to, before I introduce you my guest, I would like to talk about a little bit about Ethiopia situation and what's going on. And after that, I will introduce you my guest. So as we all know, Ethiopia conflict has been going on more than a year now, and more than 4 million people have been forced from their homes, and many more die for hunger or relating causes for the war. More than 80% Ethiopians are in danger to get essential needs such as medications, home, shelter, and also food. Many more were internally displaced, where others fled into the neighbor countries. So I would like to introduce you my wonderful panel, community leaders, and also experts, so that way we can have a fair discussion, how we can move on, how we can solve the problem that Horn of Africa facing, especially Ethiopia. So if I introduce you, I have Engineer Yesi Mesfin. He's an engineer. Mesfin is a biochemical engineer. He also is a community activist, PhD candidate. I also have Girma Hassan, employment counselor, community leader, and also chairman for Oromo Culture and Institute of Minnesota. I also have Mersa Kidan. He's also engineer, master's degree of science, engineering and technology management. He's also community organizer and activist. He's also author of a book. The name is the Habesha Chronicles. I also have Petros Haila. He's educator, political scientist, and also community organizer. He's also active of Eritrea and Pan-African relating activities. Chairman, welcome to Himila Show. If I jump in and start our questions, my first question going to Mr. Yesi. Yesi, I would like to start with the question that is, we're trying to talk about what's going on in Ethiopia. So before we move in, we would like to know what's the root cause of this conflict in Ethiopia right now?
Before I answer the question, I would like to thank Tempo Afrique TV and Mr. Warsami for giving us this opportunity to be here today in this studio to discuss the current situation of Ethiopia and especially the conflict in the northern part of Ethiopia, in the Amhara and the Tigray region. So I would like to go straight into your question. So the root cause of the problem. So before I answer this question, this is my personal opinion. As you highlighted, I'm not representing any organization here, but according to my personal belief, I believe that the root cause of the problem here, there are different layers to the problem, but let's put aside the triggering point of the conflict, and then let's talk about the previous the precursors to the conflict and the war. So in my belief, I think the ethnic federalism and the ethnicity which was prematurely preached to the Ethiopian people probably is the root cause of the problem, because when the constitution was drafted and Ethiopia implemented ethnic federalism in if I believe in 1994, And since then, there were a lot of ethnic conflicts, around the country, and territorial conflicts, conflicts because of religion, which progressively escalated to this war. And prior to the war, there were elections in 2015 in Ethiopia, which was followed by the mass uprising in 2016 by the Cairo, the Fano, which led to which made the EPDRF to implode and led to the reform, which happened in 2018, and at that time, TPLF retreated to Tigray region, and then the friction began between the Tigray, the TPLF and the Ethiopian federal government, where the TPLF protested against the Ethiopian government, and then made few actions, so for example, staging a military parade, claiming that 250,000 troops were ready, to defend Tigray, and then also not letting the Ethiopian federal government to appoint leaders, to the Tigray Northern Command, and specifically, they returned one general from the airport, and also when the Ethiopian government postponed the election because of COVID, which is an international pandemic. TPLF decided to conduct an election which, according to the federal government's assessment, it's illegal constitutionally, and all those things kind of led to intense and escalation, which led to the final triggering point on November 4th, where the TPLF attacked the Ethiopian Defense Force in Northern Command. And since then, the war broke, and there are a lot of things that happened during the 27 years, when TPLF was in power, that pretty much led to the war, to the triggering point. So, in my belief, I think those are the precursors and the final trigger for the war.
Girma, what do you think?
First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'd like to thank Tempo Africa, and you guys become a voice of voiceless. So it is very important that we recognize your welcoming attitude and your time too. Yes, thank you for having us. Before I answer this question, I would like to say a few things about how Abiy came to the power. He came to the power, like my good friend say here, and because of the movement of Kairos, Fanos, and some other, ethnicities in the country, be tired of the TPLF regime, and that at that time it has been very difficult to air, anything. So, with the support of these people, he came to the power, especially the Oromo Kairos. If you guys remember, in 2016. October 2nd, at the Recha celebration, where millions of people gathering, over 2 million gathering on that day, enemy came to that place, the government broke to, come to the event and killed over 700 people. Yet, justice hasn't been done. What Oromo people have been demanding is true federalism, equal justice, which we never had, and free political prisoners. Finfinne be the administrated under Oromo, and Afan Oromo be a federal language. This is the 5 major things that the Oromo people have been demanding for many, many years. Yet, after he promised all these things, Abiy ignored all these questions. Then what happened? The fraction happened between Abiy and Oromo, and between the TPLF. TPLF demanded, especially the election, to host the election, to do the election according to the constitution. The federal government claim that because of COVID we can't do it. It would be possible. The government in other hand has been doing all gathering, all protesting, for their own sake, yet they said the election cannot happen. What creates this conflict? Number one is dishonesty. A lot of dishonesty in the political arena that need to be corrected. He magnifying himself, this guy, Abiy, and he put everything aside. He ignored the TPLF, his masters who trained him for their own sake, of course, but he come against them with the Team Lemma group and fighting them. So the TPLF, of course, it's human behavior. They need a power, and they did everything that they can, but they couldn't agree. Then, number one, they been ignored, pushed out of the government. Number two, their fund has been cut. Number three, the government directly targeting them and accusing them they have been doing wrong things, like as if Abiy wasn't in that government. He has been in that government for the last 20 plus years, torturing, killing. He is the mastermind of TPLF for some times, but he just focusing on TPLF didn't make any difference except war, which is we don't like to happen. It's so unfortunate that happened.
Okay, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna ask same questions, Engineer Marisa Kidan.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Warsame. It's good to be here after a long time at Tempo Africa Studio. So I'm really excited, and I'm very glad to be with my brothers Yezi and Girma. So your question was, what's the root cause of this war, right? There are immediate causes that we can list that happened recently. But at the root of the problem is the way what we call the nation Ethiopia is formed. So my brother Yezi earlier said the ethnic federalism that was implemented by EPRDF in Ethiopia was the root cause of the problem. That's what he believes. In a diametrical opposite way, my brother Girma was saying the Qero, the Oromo youth, fought for their right, their ethnic, their national right. See, those two are opposite views. These views are the ones that are clashing. So there are those who believe Ethiopia should be formed as one state with one people, with one culture. And there are those of us who believe Ethiopia is a nation of nations. In Ethiopia, there is the Tigray nation, which is really a big, large nation with a lot of history. In Ethiopia, there is the Oromo nation, which has its own long history of existence. You cannot mold these people into one identity. There is no way you can do that. There will always be fights and conflicts as long as you try to mold these people into one nation. So at the root of these problems is those two views that are clashing in Ethiopia. There is a wrong presumption that Ethiopia is one nation. If you see the Ethiopian history, Ethiopia is an empire. Its last king, his title is Emperor Haile Selassie. He's an emperor. The very definition of an empire is a collection of nations that's led by one emperor. All the previous kings of Ethiopia were named emperor for that reason. So it is an empire, and most empires eventually gave way to new nations. One of the newest nations is my brother's country, Eritrea. So there are some countries like Switzerland and other countries who managed to change those empires into a common republic state. The way they did it is by respecting people's identities, not by destroying people's identities and trying to mold them into one identity. What Abiy Ahmed is trying to do today is to destroy people's identity to destroy the Oromo identity, to destroy the Tigray identity, and mold them into one identity that he calls Ethiopia. But for us, the Ethiopian identity is the collection of these great nations, these great people. We have to maintain them, sustain them, and put them together. That makes us beautiful. So at the root of this war is this. But after that, there are many layers, as my brother Yazdi said, that we can list. Those are immediate causes. We can discuss those later, but I believe this is the...
Yeah, we're going to move it there because we have other questions that relating to that particular topic. Petro Haile, what do you think?
Okay, first, in your introduction, you say political scientist. I'm not, although I don't mind being one, but I studied political science and community organizing and all that stuff besides business administration. But to the point, what is the root cause of the problem in Ethiopia? Okay, there's two definitions. The one that my brother Mercy came up with, and Issei. In fact, we all are circling around the same issue, but ethnic federalism is a management system, to me. If we go back in history, Ethiopian history, just like Mercy was saying, this is a dynasty rule, landlord's rule, you know. If you talk about Nugus Negest, king and king of kings, this is a description given to different nations and nationalities in that sense. So the fact that people were different, especially in Ethiopia having 86 ethnic groups and various national languages, is just a recipe for good or for bad. As they say in this country, diversity is a bliss. But how do you manage that diversity? You know, it can go to a hostility, just like we witnessed in Minnesota a few years ago. George Floyd. One man can trigger the entire community, for that matter. I think that's what happened in Ethiopia too. There was ethnic tension and ethnic rivalry for so long. It's not that only TPLF brought that tension. It was going on for decades, many years. So, but what happened is there was a mismanagement for 27 years by the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front. I don't want to accuse them, but at the same time, there's a contribution that they made to the society. But what led to that is corruption, you know, organizational loyalty, and all these questions comes in picture. So one incident, the Cairo movement, when they do the Addis Ababa master plan, expanding the master plan, it was a protest and eventually supported by another ethnic group called Fano, and combine those two forces, it become a national movement. And in addition to that, the diaspora community reinforced this. You know, the Oromos and the Amharas in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, they were creating some sort of coalition to encourage the movement. And another is the Eritrean factor. By the way, I'm an Eritrean. The Eritrean factor is also they were supporting and financing movements that destabilizes the Wayani administration. I'm not saying only Ethiopia, but Ethiopia also doing the same thing to Eritrea. This is a fact in that Horn of Africa region. So that Cairo movement, for some reason, was able to overthrow, it gets stronger and broader and able to overthrow the EPRDF regime as a regime. But that coalition maintains as it is. With the exception of TPLF was forced out. I would say forced out because in any nation, when you do that kind of overthrowing, TPLF was a willing partner to go along with that. Usually a fight broke out and one group will destroy the other one. But on this case, they maintained that coalition until the budgetary issue and some other pressure came into the picture. Then they was forced to retreat. They call it retreat with honor or retreat for peace, whatever the reason and the excuse is. That's what happened. So that tension brought the actual war. Who started who shot the first bullet? I don't know, but the provocation was there. The movement was there. You know, the hostility was there. So the Eritrean factor was there. So it's a combination of many factors that brought to this end result. For now, I guess this would do it.
Yes, that's why we really like to know exactly why this conflict started, so that way people can get benefit from you guys, your perspective as a scholar, experts, and also community members. So we're going to move on to our second question, which is the federal government has been accused for deliberately preventing aid from reaching Tigray region, and government denies that repeatedly. So what do we know about all this, if it's really happening? I want to start with you again, Mr. Yassir. Ms. Phil?
All right. So, I will answer this question, from two perspectives here. So, the humanitarian aid during the time where the federal government controlled the Tigray region for 8 months. So, at that time, there was a temporary government that was formed by the federal government to manage or administer the Tigray region. And then there was a humanitarian aid support activity during that time. And then the second one was, when the TPLF, the humanitarian aid during the time where TPLF invaded the Amhara and the Afar regions. So, in the first case, when the federal government formed this interim or temporary government to manage Tigray, the aid was coming through, and the federal government itself was heavily involved with providing the humanitarian aid, plus international aid groups were also allowed, to come in and provide aid to the people that need it, specifically in the Tigray region. But at that time, there was a conflict between these agencies, humanitarian agencies, and the federal government, because the federal government had the mandate and the responsibility to search any aid that's coming to the country's border. But these humanitarian aid agencies, needed uncontrolled, structured, just open access to provide humanitarian aid. Access through Sudan, like the border of Sudan, through Afar, and then even through, using, air, like airplanes. But the federal government was against this idea because, this is a war region, and they have to do their own, searching before aid was coming in. So that didn't sit very well with these agencies, and they started to politicize this fact, as if the federal government was actually hindering the humanitarian aid support. And then as a result, it was made like a big international news by the Western media. And then the government stood by its claim that it is actually facilitating the aid. So that's that part of it during the 8 months period. But even during that period, the humanitarian agencies, boldly, they were seen, providing aid, not humanitarian aid, but other logistics to the TPLF, including, satellite communication and others. We have seen videos and pictures coming out, where TPLF leaders were using satellite phones, next to this humanitarian aid agents, and that kind of indicates, the hidden motive behind not all of them, but some compromised, agency members like WFP or whatever. I'm not saying or accusing the agencies, but some compromised agents, from these agencies were engaged in activities against their call of duty. And as a result, the Ethiopian government had to take action, expelling few of those humanitarian aid workers because because of the evidence gathered against their activities. Then when you come to the second phase, where the Ethiopian government retreated out of the Tigray region, claiming that it's providing some relief time for the Tigray people, to harvest and all those things. And another time, TPLF kind of used that opportunity and invaded Afar and the Amhara region, and for a reason that's not clear to me, because if they were fighting for the Tigray people, for their territory, I don't see the reason why they push all the way to Shawa. That's another topic. But the humanitarian aid at that time, it was very difficult because the access, the road access was through Afar, and through the Amhara region, and TPLF invaded those areas, made it difficult for these agencies to come and provide aid. Besides, the government itself couldn't be responsible and couldn't safeguard these agencies to provide these aids. And on top of that, TPLF, repeatedly, there were evidences that were surfacing, diverting this humanitarian aid, for the military, for the troops, and also the fact that, more than 800 trucks were not returned back to, like after delivering the aid. To our surprise, to the most of Ethiopians' surprise, the international media didn't give enough coverage. In the World Food Organization didn't complain about it boldly as we'd like to see. And the reason that was given for those not returning back was shortage of fuel. And if that is the case, then there were videos and images that's surfacing, these trucks with the UN, the WFP logo, transporting troops in Tigray. So what did that?
Yeah, we're gonna find out that because we don't have much time to cover all that. So Girma, if I give you the chance to answer that same question that I asked Mr. Yesi.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that question. Actually, it is not the first time that dictatorship like Abiy using food blocking, media blocking, communication blocking as a weapon. They have been using it throughout the world, for that matter. He is one of a dictator that want to see everything with his lens only. So, yes, the aid has been blocked. Yes, there is complaint from the government that comes. They say there is, an emissions smuggling coming to those trucks those trucks, but there is no as such evidence that has been presented to the media, to independent media, except the government media. So that is number one. Yes, it has been blocked. It's so inhuman. It's so sad when people dying when children's dying because they don't get water, food. It's so sad that a government that claim they are their leader, yet they are blocking food. It's so inhuman. That happens not only in Tigray. For that matter, let me tell you this. In the last 3 years, in Oromia, there has been a war. There has been a media denial. There has been communication denial. There have been aid denial. There is no as such civic organization working properly in the last 3 years. Yet the focus has been on Tigray. Yes, the Tigray disaster is not, I'm not simplifying that. It's so bad, it's so disaster, it's so hindering the next generation, not only this generation for that matter. So the government use food transportation as a weapon. That is true. That has been proved with independent organizations such as UN and UNICEF and some other journalists too. So it is there. It is true.
Okay, we're gonna move on. Marseille Kinan, if I ask you the same question, what's your purpose answer for that matter?
Yeah, so it's so emotional and very sad. Such a fine person as Yezi trying to defend an actual genocide going on. I cannot comprehend this.
Yeah, but we're gonna express.
Yes, I'm gonna answer my question.
Yeah, absolutely. But we don't wanna,
correct,
make personal.
So it's very sad. At this time, there is a genocide going on in Tigray. My fellow Africans, fellow people should know that there is a genocide going on. The genocide is multifaceted. One, they are bombing cities during market day. Can you imagine? During market day, purposefully, so that there are enough people to kill civilians, purposefully. And as my brother Girma said, this is happening in Tigray in mass, but this has been happening in Wallagga, in Oromia, for a long time. And in Tigray today, the government purposefully blocked any communication, any power, electricity, any services, basic services like banking, water, sanitation, and all those things, and now blocking any humanitarian aid, even outsiders. When outsiders wanted to save those people, he blocks them. And the government, Abiy Ahmed, is using hunger as a weapon to destroy the livelihood of the Tigray people. This is a fact happening today. There is a genocide going on. When the light shades in Tigray, when the blockage, the siege opens, Africans, you will find to your dismay that horrific things are happening today. Every single day about 172 kids die. Every single day out of hunger. For someone to sit here and defend that, I can't comprehend it. So what the government is doing today is blocking media so that they don't have access. Blocking any telecommunication access. My brother was saying the internal agencies the external agencies were providing communication, so as if they shouldn't get communication. Tigray should get communication. That's not a bad thing. They should get communication. So it's not the government's right to block the Tigray people from getting communication. So what's wrong with providing the Tigray people with satellite communication? There's nothing wrong with that. They should do that, actually. It's a basic need for humanity at the 21st century. So it's very difficult to understand how people defend Tigray, this genocide that's happening today. We are brothers. We might have differences. We might have conflicts. We can resolve those even through war. But civilians should be protected. Kids, mothers should be protected. They should get food. So the government, the federal government, Abiy Ahmed, is purposefully blocking food aid, any basic services to Tigray people, to basically conduct his Tigray genocide. There is a genocide going on today. My fellow Africans should stand with the people. With the people. All humanity should stand with the people and raise your voices. Thank you.
Petra,
okay. Fortunately, unfortunately, the war is nasty, and who's telling the truth, who's lying, is so difficult to verify. But one thing for sure, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, at one time, he denied the involvement of Eritrea. A few days later, or a few months later, he admitted that there was an involvement by Eritrean, and they asked them to leave. So if a government is capable of doing those kind of lies and deceit, I would not be surprised if they use food as a weapon as a weapon to control the population. That I would say, this is just my assumption. Yeah, the integrity of a government is measured by many factors, and this happens to be one of them. If denying, if their Ethiopian sovereignty was violated by an Eritrean agent, then you would say that, okay, this government not only will lie for, about the food issue, but he can deny the violation of sovereignty to his people as well as to the international community. But again, another factor is when they accuse the entire media organization, call it CNN, Al Jazeera, you don't do that. So as a solution, maybe we need an independent force to verify the accuracy and the fact on this issue. That's what I can say for now.
Yes, local community can reach out the, factions that fighting, and that way they can come up with evidence what happened. We're gonna move from our third question, but I would like we need to be brief because we have short period of time and we have 3 more questions that need to be answered. So I want everybody to be, minimize the answers and straight go to the points. Anyway, the other question that I have, the other side, some people believe that the system that Tigray regime when they were in power create was based ethnic political environment, federal system that based on ethnic tribes. A lot of people think that creates a lot of chaos, and they think that it's fair assessment to say that because what's going on, it's what's been going on for that 27 plus years that Tigray were in power. So if I start with you, do you think that's fair assessment to say that, or?
Yeah. So, Mr. Warsami, before I answer this question, because I'm a little bit at a disadvantage because I'm the first one to answer a question, and people are commenting on my statement, and I don't get that chance. So I would like to respond to Mercedes shortly here. So by no means, I don't want to create this perception that I'm here to defend the federal government. So as I said, briefly, earlier, I'm reflecting my personal opinion, and with that, I'd like to separate. I mean, whenever we're talking about satellite communication, I would like to separate the Tigray people from TPLF and TPLF supporters, and to the fact that the federal government is accused in lying. And the same thing, when it comes to credibility, there are a lot of lies that came out from TPLF as well. So how can we believe them? If you don't believe the federal government, equally, they have proven to lie, that TPLF itself. So, it goes both ways. And so, the other thing, Mercedes, to your point, I personally don't believe that this is a calculated genocide. And if that is the case, the Tigray people are Ethiopians. So I would be, equally sorry and, acknowledge that. But, the same thing goes the other way. When TPLF were in power, Amhara people were massacred. Amhara people were killed. And there was, the Amhara people also claimed that there was a genocide going on, by TPLF. So it goes both ways. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that, TPLF by itself, to me, I don't think, it is a fair representation. There are people in TPLF that did bad things to the rest of the country, and so it goes both ways. So I just would like to comment that I'm not feeling the pain of the Tigray people. I do, but we have to separate a little bit between TPLF, that these small groups that caused this problem by getting into friction with the federal government, and then the rest of the Tigray people. So I just would like to comment that and then get to the answer. I think we kind of touched upon this, when we talked, respond to the very first question about this ethnic federalism, and Mercy explained, the emperors and the empire. That's true. In the past, that was the case, but society evolves over time. We are intermarried now, so it doesn't mean that we can roll back. What happened. So now with this ethnic federalism, are we better than before? How many people were killed because of their ethnicity? How many Amharas were killed because they are Amharas? And how many, people from other ethnic groups were killed? Like you said, the Oromos. How many of them were killed, because they are Oromos? And are we better than before? Or are we going to be better in the future? And where is the end? Ethiopia has more than 80 ethnic groups. So does it mean that, we have to be, organized by ethnic group? Are you trying to rewind that today, by going out, publicly and, asking people to divorce? Asking people, okay, if you have a Mahara wife, please divorce. Is that the solution? I don't believe so, because in the past it could be the case, but society has evolved. We are intermarried. It doesn't mean that one culture is going to dominate another culture, but at least we can do that. First, if we can be united as one identity, Ethiopians. It doesn't mean that if you are a Tigray, you are still a Tigray. If you are Oromo, you're still Oromo. If I'm Amhara, I'm still Amhara. But at least there should be some binding. The reason why we're here today, I could sit with another person from another country, just because of that fact that we have that origin, Ethiopianness. So I would respect like you from Tigray, from Oromo, but can we at least respect each other, but at least be like Ethiopians? So to me, this ethnic federalism a little bit goes out of hand, because a lot of people doesn't quite understand what it means. With some people, ethnic federalism probably means, okay, if you don't speak my language, you don't belong here. Get out. So that is how it was interpreted, because the majority of the people are not politically mature enough to even understand federalism, let alone ethnic federalism. That's why we see a lot of people, okay, leave my place, you don't belong here, go where you came from, and get divorced, all those things. So in my belief, we respect, Ethiopia is more than 80 ethnic groups, and we can live, under one umbrella. I don't see anything wrong with that, but
okay, let me give Girma opportunity to answer.
I believe, I think most Ethiopians share this answer. I believe the true federalism is a great leadership system for this kind of big society. So it is very important to have the true federalism that respects the minority's rights and the majority be lead the territory or the whatever you call it. So do we have, the question should be, do we have the true federalism? As far as I know, we don't have it. I share what your concern. Yes, some people understood the federalism system wrongly and use it wrongly. And the government didn't teach well its citizens how the federalism works. A lot of kids, they don't even know what federalism all about. So I know there is a problem. There is injustice happening in Ethiopia. When we say Ethiopia, Oromia is Ethiopia. No state like Oromia is Ethiopia in Ethiopian empire. However, if we took it to wrong direction, it is really bad. Federalism may not work. Injustice, the election problem, and the lie after lie is very common thing that we have witnessing in Abiy administration. It's getting worse. During the TPLF regime, yes, all this happened. For example, if federalism, people need to lead themselves and decide their destiny for themselves. Is that happening today? No. Abiy doesn't have any guts or any interest to answer the Oromo's people question, demand. Even he has been saying that he's minimizing what we have been fighting for, what our people have been dying for, and avoiding or destroying the federal system and trying to bring the unilateral system, which is not going to happen. If that happens, it's going to be a big disaster. Nobody, especially Oromo, do not accept it. One big reason, we need the federalism system. The Oromo language has been taught for the last 20 plus years, 25, 27 years. Kids learn in Afan Oromo, but they are not getting a federal job because they don't understand the Amharic language. If we have the true federalism, we would have that accommodation. Today we can see, you cannot, if I wear this thing in some, if I have my own flag in Finfinne today, I will be in jail. What about the old Ethiopian flag? It's everywhere today, even in Oromia. Dishonesty is the major problem that happening today, and wrong, assumption or perception of federalism is a disaster that we are facing today.
Okay, let's move to Merci Kedan.
Yeah, so the question is whether ethnic federalism is the cause of this problem, and is it going to work, right? I'll tell you one thing. First of all, the system in Ethiopia today is not just ethnic. Well, one, there are 5 factors, right? Language, geographic situation, historical relationship. With that, that's how what we call the killils or regions are established. So it's not just by language or just by ethnicity. We have the southern nations region, which has multiple ethnic groups. The Amhara region has multiple ethnic groups. The Tigray has 5 ethnic groups in it. So it's not just by ethnicity. It's historical situation, language, and other factors included. That's the first thing. The second thing, it's United Nations recognized right for people to learn and work with their mother tongue. It's not something you give them or you deny them. It's a natural right. So for the Tigray people to learn, write, work, and cherish happiness, cherish life with their own language, with their own administration, is their natural right, and we'll never allow anybody to take that away from us. We'll make it happen by hook or by crook. It's not going to happen, simply put. Any other system other than respecting the nation's right is not going to work. Ethiopia is going to implode and disintegrate. That's what the Abiy administration and his followers don't understand. Trying to take the people's right of their natural right is not going to happen. We're not going to let that happen. So it should be known that this is something we fought for. We made sure we have this right in our hands, and we're not going to let it go. So any intention to change that will only create a conflict, a war. That's what's happening today. Now, my brother was saying repeatedly that after the ethnic federalism, people were dying because of their ethnicity. Well, people were dying because of ethnicity in the last 3 years, that's true. But it was worse before that. The Oromo people were mass murdered. The Tigray, all these ethnicity, there are many ethnic groups that are extinct now because they were killed because of ethnicity. So this, in the old days, even in Europe, in the US, it happened, right? Humanity have reached to the level now, the Americans, we recognize that happened. And we feel sorry for that because that happened today in America, right? We should feel the same way in Ethiopia. The Oromos were killed. Many ethnic groups were mass murdered. We should feel sorry about that. We should not think about bringing that back. The reason for the war in Tigray today is because the federal government was trying to tell Tigrayans, this is how you're going to be ruled. And we said, no. We decide how we are going to be ruled. It's up to us. So whether you name it ethnic or whatever you want to name it, we believe Tigray is a nation. It's not an ethnic group. In Tigray, there are 5 ethnic groups. In Amhara, there are 20 ethnic groups. You can list many of them. In Oromia, there are more ethnic groups.
There is no...
Right? In Oromia, there are, including the Amhara, right? So including the Tigray, in Oromia, there is a lot of ethnic groups living in the Oromia region today. So it's not about just ethnicity. It's about that nationhood. We Tigrayans have that nationhood. We have that sense of identity. We love that identity, where one thing, as I put as a caveat here, we used to love our Ethiopian identity. After all, Tigrayans are the ones who created that very empire, Ethiopia. Today, we are in a situation where how can we live in this empire knowing that people defend the genocide that happened to us? It's going to be very difficult politically. Yes, he is my friend, my brother. Personally, I respect him and love him. But from now on, I don't think we can live in the same political structure. So we are at that point. So let alone coming into a unitary system, even living with our current regional systems, for Tigrayans, it's going to be very difficult. Once you commit genocide to people, then it's going to be very difficult for them to accept that empire or country as their own.
Okay, let's give a chance to answer Petra Haile.
Yeah, as an Eritrean, I would say our president says no more ethnic federalism. If Ethiopia exercises its ethnic federalism, he will interfere. If you hear his Tigrinya interview, that's what he said. But he's totally wrong. A dictatorship, call it ethnic federalism or non-ethnic formula. A dictatorship is a dictatorship. Ethiopia was ruled by Haile Selassie. Ethiopia was ruled by Mengistu. There was repression like everybody else. Mengistu massacred millions. And by some account, it was considered as a genocide as well. I'm not going to get into the definition of genocide, how many people have to die to call it a genocide. That's just, I believe they have a stage And the last I checked on Ethiopia, which is about a year ago, it was on the 8th stage, which is 2 more, and you call it a complete genocide or something. Like, the media use of demonizing an ethnic group or religious group and all that factor. But put that aside, but ethnic federalism as a system, I don't think I have a problem there. You just have to do it the right way, because any other non-ethnic systems in Africa, they have the capacity to be a dictator. Ethnic is a management. It's a management. For the last 27 years in Ethiopia, they were practicing it. There was no genocide. There was mismanagement. There was corruption. Oh yeah, we all know that. That's why the TPLF failed to be recognized by the population. That's why the Cairo movement began. That's why every Ethiopian was fed up of that system. But at the same time, they did something good, something productive. But it's not the ethnic federalism was as a gauge for a dictatorship or non-dictatorial systems. So ethnic federalism, I personally think before Tigray, there was in Afar, on Oromo, 1950s, 1940s movement. People were complaining on the basis of their ethnicity. So it's not something the Tigray came up to favor their own political agenda. No, it's not. It's a human nature. When Haile Selassie came into Eritrea, he imposed his language, he imposed his rule. In fact, he literally revoked Tigrinya and Arabic and imposed Amharic. There's some people who reach that, who remembers that days. Oh. And not to mention all the genocide that goes on with the killings and stuff like that. So I don't think we need to focus changing the system. But I agree with you also, if there's a less ethnic emphasis in a nation, it may be better. But you're going to have to do your homework. Give more democracy, more justice, and equal distribution of wealth and resource. That may reduce it. But ethnic federalism should not be singled out and criticized. And just to mention a little bit, Isaias is not an ethnic federalist government, but we don't even have a constitution. He's the worst dictator in Africa, and by some account is considered the North Korea of Africa because of the level of repression that the Eritrean government imposed on its own people. So I think when it comes to ideology, let's not automatically associate it with, with a negative system. It can be worked out, it can be modified, and you can make it human eventually. I think I'm done.
Yeah, we need to do our homework, as you say, because federalism is system that all powerful countries use, and they've been struggling for a while, but now they're doing good. Anyway, the last 2 questions that we have, we were basically talking about foreign policy relating to this conflict, and also we're trying to find out solution how we can get out of this. So my other question is, there are strategic interests among superpowers, especially like United States, United Kingdom, and China. Do you have any concerns that Ethiopia can become a new proxy potential space? I'm starting with you again, Mr. Yassin.
Okay, all right. Always the guinea pig here. So, personally, it depends on how, strong a stand the government, Ethiopian government is taking, in regards to this. So, for a proxy, for a proxy war to happen, the government should side with one side or the other. In my belief, Ethiopia as a sovereign country, it had the right to work with any country in the world based on mutual interest. But if any other country comes to the, to Ethiopia and try to maneuver, or kind of interfere in its internal affair, the country has the right to reject that, because it is a sovereign country, independent country. So, to me, at this point, as highlighted in here, the Western countries, versus Russia and China, having a proxy war in Ethiopia, I don't think that should be a concern for me, because the way Russia and China approached Ethiopia is in based on mutual interest. And on the other side, what the Western countries are doing is a little bit like, okay, my way, you have to do it this way, or you have to do this that way. To the point that faction transitional government is being formed in the United States here, while like a government that was democratically elected recently with a majority support is still intact in the country, and it's proven that it can manage the country. So to answer your question, do I have a concern about Ethiopia being a proxy war space? I don't think so. There might be international pressures from one way or the other, but as the country stayed put her feet its feet on ground, and if the people unite, I don't think that will happen in Ethiopia. It might have happened in other places because the society in those areas were conducive to this kind of situations. But in Ethiopia, historically, I don't think the people are conducive to this because they fought back foreign interference in the past, and it is demonstrated recently how people came together to fight back the external forces influence. So personally, I don't believe that being a proxy war space is a concern.
Okay, what about Girma?
Thank you for this question too. And me and my good brother here, we are in different chapter or different space. Absolutely, the country is a battleground for those superpower nations. It's so unfortunate. Yes, I believe the country has to have its own sovereignty and protect its own sovereignty. I totally understand how that is important. Yet, we can see in the last few months who is supporting this regime. China and United Emirates, Turkey, even Iran. There's the old saying that, tell me your friend and I'll tell you who you are. This is the reality. These people never had democracy in their nation. Especially the Eritrean regime, come on now, who never had any election in the last 30 years, who never let its nation to thrive for the better. To be honest, Abiy is, maybe he's worse than Isaias Afwerki. He can be worse. The way he is working right now to make that nation to go hell. He is saying Ethiopia, the great Ethiopia. Come on now, which great Ethiopia? Ethiopia never be great. Ethiopia has been known for starvation. Ethiopia has been known for repression, torturing. Ethiopia has been known for a lot of misleadings. I cannot say every leaders are bad in all aspects. Okay? They have their own good. They have done something good for that nation. Yet, they haven't solved the fundamental problem that exists for a century. That is the problem. We thought Abiy could be a person that can solve it because he's young, he can understand the reality of past and present and see the future in a good lens. Today, he is reversing everything that has been done by TPLF, and he is putting, as if, like I said earlier, as if he wasn't there. He keeps blaming TPLF. He is the right hand of TPLF. He has been doing a lot of, atrocity in Oromia. He has been killing. He has been leading. A lot of Oromos supporting him. I was surprised. We have been fighting the system, not the person. We are not fighting to bring Abiy to the power to get what we want. Okay? So sovereignty starts from home. In your home, if you don't have right, and somebody neighboring country make decision for you, that is where you fail. This government failed so many times and in so many ways. Yes, you know, the US trying to attack those dictatorship, the USA can do anything to that country. In that sense, you know, the proxy war is not too far. It can happen. If it happens, the people of Ethiopia be attacked and the economy going to hell. Imagine when Abiy come to the power, what is the GPED? What about today? Can you see the currency, how it's failing? Why it's failing? Why those dictatorship do not help them?
Yeah, we might need to have different
thank you.
discussion for the economy and all that. Let me allow Mercy Kedan to answer that question.
So, does Ethiopia has the risk of becoming a proxy battleground? It already is a proxy battleground. Unfortunately, Abiy Ahmed, when he came to power and was given this Nobel Prize for peace because he started this peace negotiation with Isaias, prior to that, African Union was trying to create that reconciliation between Eritrean government and Ethiopian government. Instead of going to Africans and asking them to help them create that peace, where did he go? He went to bin Salman of Saudi Arabia and bin Zayed of United Arab Emirates. There is an interesting thing. Nobody knows what they negotiated. Nobody knows what they agreed. I'm sorry, even the Amhara elites do not know, the Tigray elites do not know. Nobody knows what they agreed there. Now, all this financial support for this war comes from the United Arab Emirates to Abiy and bin Salman of Saudi Arabia. Why? We should ask why. Everything comes with interest, right? There is a give and take. So why is Abiy getting all this support, financial support from the bin Salman and bin Zayed? We have to ask this question. He has already sold Ethiopian sovereignty to them. They built the Ethiopian Defense Head Office in Addis Ababa. It's built by a Saudi company. How do you let a foreigner company build your defense office? It's a security threat for Ethiopia. By the way, General Saara was killed for that reason, because he said no. Now the point is, he sold. Now he already promised the Turkish government that he would sell them what percentage of Ethiopian Airlines. This guy is selling Ethiopia like a cheap card. So already the Ethiopian coffin is out of money, out of currency. In order, because he likes gadgets. He thinks these drones will change the whole world. If people are determined, he cannot finish them by drones. But he thinks, yes, they make a difference, but at the end of the day, you're not going to win by drones, by gadgets.
Never.
You got to win the people's heart. So unfortunately, this guy already opened that opportunity for these wannabe superpowers like the Arab Emiratis and wannabe superpowers like Iranians and Turkish. He has already opened that opportunity for a proxy war. Now the other forces are not in there yet. Now hell is going to come to Ethiopia when those guys start giving drones to the Tigray forces. When those powers start giving missiles to the Tigray forces, that's when problems are going to come. When those powers start giving these lethal weapons to the Oromo Liberation Army, that's when problems are going to show up. The real proxy war is going to start there. Until now, the other side is watching with patience. But Abiy has already opened that opportunity. So, especially Africans, I think, should see the things as they are. The Ethiopian government that we have today has already caused a lot of problem for Ethiopia. By the way, Girma was mentioning, TPLF had its own failures, a lot of problems, which all of us understand. But at least at the TPLF time, there was economical growth. there was a double-digit economical growth. There was people's lives increased by 20 years. Can you believe that? So despite all the problems politically, 50 universities, government-owned universities, the privately owned, hundreds of them were opened. While in Eritrea, now Abiy's friend Isaias Afwerki closed the only one university that was in Eritrea. So now, who is he a friend with? Now, there are symptoms that you can tell a dictator. The first one is he always swears by the motherland or by the fatherland, like Hitler did. Hitler mobilized the people by the name of the fatherland. Always he praised the fatherland Germany. Abiy is doing the same thing, the motherland Ethiopia. But is it true? Does he care about the Amhara people? Does he care about the Oromo people? Does he care about the Tigray people? Those are Ethiopia. Those people are what we call Ethiopia. But he likes the name, not the people. The second symptom of a dictator is they always blame it on the foreign media. Always. Pick any dictator. They are always blaming CNN. They are always blaming the Telegraph or whatever. So that's another symptom. The third symptom, they are always blaming these international organizations, the UN, the WFP, as Yezi was saying. These are great organizations trying to save lives. There is no reason they would prefer to support TPLF over Abiy. Their purpose is to save lives, and Abiy is blocking them not to do that. So my point is the proxy war has already started. It will be worse. Things are coming, and it's going to be worse. Now, even the Ethiopian people should really worry about that.
Okay. We are approaching the final question for our show. So I want to give opportunity to Petros Hela to answer that question. Then we're going to move on to the final question.
Okay, I'll make it short. I think the proxy war, the conflict in the Horn of Africa has already been taken by somebody else. Recently, remember the war in Yemen, the Saudi-led coalition versus the Turkey, Iran, Qatar alliance on the other side. What happened to Yemen? Yemen crisis is over. They've been turned into ashes, demolished. Now it's our turn. Let's start from Djibouti, a small country which is 1/10 of Minnesota, the 10% in terms of size. There's 5 groups. China is there, the US is there, French is there, Japan and German. Guess what? American base and Chinese base is 7 miles apart. And they're getting closer to Ethiopia because the Western nations are not happy with Ali Ahmed. That is, but who's allowing all this to happen? The states in Somalia, Turkish, they have the biggest base next to Istanbul. It's in Turkish. United Arab Emirates were there. In Somaliland as well, Qatar. So they're trying to control those Gulf. Partly it's a strategic interest, partly they need a pariah state for them to satisfy their agenda or a need. And we can go bigger, China and the US. China just signed a Silk Road project with Eritrea in the middle of this crisis. What they're saying is, to hell with you with the US, we're here. America is taking on the other side. But earlier you mentioned a couple of things like what is going to be a solution to this area. Samantha Powers, some times ago, she was talking about, in order to have peace in that region, what should we do? She was saying, Tigrayans should not go and involve in it, the rest of Ethiopian affairs, so they need to go back to their Kidl. But Walqait and Tagane should be awarded to Tigray. I think that would have been a good start to see things. And the last thing I wanted to say is there's 2 international organizations. The one that forced Ethiopia, Djibouti, and other nations to be subservient to their interests are those superpowers. The Arab countries that I mentioned. The Abai controversy also created another enemy, which is Sudan and Egypt. And Arab League is totally siding with Egypt. while Ethiopia remain without allies. All these things are playing. I just want to make it faster because you told me you only have 2 minutes. So anyway, our agenda has been taken by an outsider force. Call it the Arab League, call it even the African Union is weak. Like he said earlier, when you have a problem, you take it to a State Department. Then when State Department sided with Egypt, you bring it back to African Union. That is the failure in diplomacy and all that stuff. But we'll talk about that next one.
Yeah, we actually exceed our time. I'm trying to answer this question only 2 minutes. And I'm going to start from the other side now. Mr. Marseille Gidan, the question is, what do you think is the best way moving forward? Do you believe African Union, IGAD, or other international organizations, including United Nations, can be good mediator to solve this peacefully?
Yes, I believe the African Union and IGAD as institutions can help bring a resolution to this conflict. I believe so. But at the end of the day, it's the players in the ground that determine what the result of that would be. I think the only way out of this is first to go back to status quo before war. To go back to that status quo before war. Before the conflict started, we have to get, whether on land or any political arrangement, we have to go back to that beginning, before the beginning of the war, the status quo before the beginning of the war. Then we can negotiate about the political arrangements on how to go forward. I think this is the only way out. The federal government should stop the siege on the people of Tigray, should allow humanitarian aid, should allow all the basic services, including electricity, telecommunication, and other services, and banking services, and then all the military forces should go back to where they were before the war. Now we can start that use that as a starting point, and then after that we can negotiate about the political resolutions, how the country should be led, and also another critical thing is there are more than 17,000 Tigrayan rank and file soldiers in concentration camps. There are more than 70,000 Tigrayans in concentration camps. Can you imagine in the 21st century, people are being put in a concentration camps, and about an average of 150 of them are being murdered every day, every single day. So all these prisoners should be released. All political prisoners, including the Oromo leaders, should be released. All political prisoners of other ethnic groups should be released, and there should be a dialogue, all-inclusive dialogue, going forward. For that to happen, on the ground, all military forces should go back to where they were, ground zero. And then all basic services for the people, including humanitarian aid, electricity, telecommunication, all should be open.
Okay,
the last one, the last one is, as the UN decided, the UN Humanitarian Commission decided, there should be a non-partisan entity investigating all the crimes committed in this conflict by whichever side, and all of them should face justice.
Okay, let's Petro Hele answer the final questions.
No, this is about the. Do you mind repeating the question for me?
Oh yeah, the question was how do you think the best way to move forward? Do you believe African Union, IGAD, or international organizations can be good mediator to solve this problem?
Yeah, I think IGAD failed Africa, African Union failed Africa, United Nations failed Africa, all of them failed Africa, including the European Union and institutional forces. So just like when the crisis comes within Ethiopia and Abba issue, and they automatically side with their organization. The organizational loyalty means more to them than solving the problem. IGAD, as we remember, it's just like only supporting one force, one side of it for so many years. So these are just a nominal organization. They don't have any substance or any conflict resolution mechanism in them that is effective. That's my. So if we need to do solve the problem in that crisis, first of all, it has to come from the own actors within the Ethiopian thing, including Eritrea, by the way. Eritrea also needs to make peace with its neighbors, and he needs to stop his interference in Ethiopian affairs and all that stuff. But we need to revisit them. They need to come up with a new strategy where independence, they have to be independent in solving the regional crisis in that sense. I can't say much on that one.
Okay, Girma, do you want me to repeat the question? Or?
No, you don't have to. It is a very good question. Going forward, what do we need? Sincere reconciliation. Sincerely coming from both sides, nationwide. We need to have that kind of willing to come together and solve our problem together. Not IGAD, not African Union, not maybe like UN. The only problem that has been challenging Ethiopia today is the problem that comes from Ethiopia. The problem that comes from home need to be addressed, or the effort has to be done at home first before it go outside. Now we are inviting others, I would say others, even including the African Union. In their watch, all this atrocity has been happening. They have been denying. The African Union has approved the last maybe 3 or 4 election. 99% election victory be like claimed. This regime, couple months ago, they claim 94% of the victory. Come on now, with whom? Who is in the election arena? They make all the problem, push others out of the image, so that they not be participating in the election. I was in Ethiopia in 2019. Almost 90% of the political party, the Oromo political party, has been closed. 90%, 95%. They have been killing back then. They are marginalizing others. That is the tactic that TPLF have been using, or like the Abiy administration. I fear to say a government. This is the other junta in Finfinne, oppressing the whole society. They call TPLF junta. The Abiy administration is the Finfinne junta, a junta not representing Ethiopia. They representing themselves. We have to claim back the country when we talk together, when we are sincere, when we have a good willing, when we have talking about justice. Imagine, Hachalu Hundesa, one of the most beloved artists of Oromo, be assassinated. No justice being served. They have been, how many drama we have been seen at the court? How many people have been in jail? No one get justice. Okay, how many used to be killed in public? In public. Okay, how many 14 Abagara members have been killed a couple of weeks ago? The government said nothing. If they are a government, why don't you? Why they haven't brought those people who are committed this crime? Have you ever seen this government, even in Amara, so many things happening, no justice be served? In some other places, no. The government, the so-called government, I say the so-called government, a government that, a regime that have been approved by African Union, by IGAD, by United Nations, is not for the people. It has to come to the table and negotiate with every partners and make a peace. Not IGAD, not African Union, not UN, of course. They approve 94% of the election be taken by this regime. This regime is, by the way, the extension of the last regime, for that matter. The parliament is full of the last old cabinet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's give Yassi last
Okay.
final.
I think I have to agree with you guys. I don't think the solution would be like mediating, by these external parties. So I think the problem is Ethiopia's internal affairs. I think the people of Ethiopia should sit together and resolve this issue because time and time again we have seen this UN and others mediating and not being very effective. So I don't believe that it's going to be effective in Ethiopia as well. I agree with that. But when it comes to how about the internal affairs? Mercy, to your point, 27 years, TPLF was in power. We know EPDRF, but we know who was steering, EPDRF behind it. And then, so far, I was not bold, because, during that 27 years, a lot of Amharas were killed. All right? TPLF has blood in its hands, Amhara's blood. A lot of Amharas were killed in Benishangul, Matakal recently, in Oromia, and TPLF was responsible prior to they were taken out of power, and even more Amharas were killed after Abiy took power, and Amharas were actually complaining because children were abducted, all right, young children, college students, and a lot of Amharas were killed in Matakal, Benishangul, and other parts of Ethiopia, and nobody cared. And even during TPLF, there was a systematic attack on Amharas, where TPLF was presenting Amharas as a common enemy, for other ethnic groups, and people boldly coming out on stage and say, "We broke the backbone of Amharas," literally, and where the iconic Sebahat was talking about how they their goal was to break Amhara in the Orthodox religion. This is the organization we're talking about. And as I said, I would like to separate TPLF from the rest of the Tigray people. But there are criminals in TPLF. And the first friction came about when TPLF refused to hand over, criminals like Getachew Asafa for the Ethiopian government system, for the the justice system. If they are clear, they should come through the formal legal process and clear themselves, and the rest of the Ethiopian people will be with them. But TPLF, as it stands out, again, I single out, specific leaders in TPLF has blood in their hands. To move forward, those people have to, come to justice, and the rest of the Ethiopian, the Amhara people, want to see justice. A lot of Amharas were killed, and statistics, Amharas disappeared. From numbers, more than 2 million Amharas disappeared. They couldn't figure it out. So, it shouldn't be who cries the loudest should be heard, but, Amharas are the ones, that have been killed in 27 years, that have been killed in the last 3 years, and still, they are being attacked. And TPLF, for that matter, whatever they have done after they invaded, coming all the way to Shawarobit, things are coming out. Mass killings, looting and robbing, and all those things. So when we come to the national discussion, all these things have to come out. It's not only I admit, there are a lot of damage that has been done to the Tigray people. It's very hard for people to live so long without power, without communication. And to your point, people deserve the right to have communication. What I was saying earlier about the satellite communication was specifically for, war activities and stuff not for the common people. I see people going, walking 11 hours to the border of Afar, to have access to network so they can communicate with their people here. That shouldn't happen, So, but, we have to come to the table and sincere, candid, being honest and, have a good dialogue, to move forward. It has to be seen from both sides. If I still crying only for, Amhara, we're not going anywhere. And in Mercy, like Tigray or Oromo, we're not going anywhere. We have to be open, receptive, open-minded, sit around the table like we do here. You know, like when Peter called me, like I didn't even hesitate. I said I will come out because, you know, we have had discussions like this before, and we should continue to have these discussions.
Yes, indeed. We need more time, and we also need more discussion.
Yes.
Before I end my show, I want to thank each one of you for coming and sharing with your expertise and sharing with our viewers as well. So we're going to end it there. But for sure, this show, I have to underline that this is the first discussion that we ever had for Ethiopian. All parties come together and share the idea and find out best way forward. So I want to thank you all. I'm very sure we're going to have more discussion for this particular topic, especially Horn of Africa or the entire continent. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.